plan. Chaos is the plan. Chaos is the plan. Chaos is the plan. Chaos is the plan.
Hey everybody, welcome to a very special edition of Bio Gamer Girl, where chaos is the plan. I am your host, Zack the Mothman Daggy, and joining us for this very special episode is the author of the young adult book series Echo's Revenge, Hart Getson. Welcome to the show, Hart.
Hey, Zack. Nice to be here.
It's fantastic having you. So, to get things started, why don't you go ahead and tell the listeners out there a bit about Echo's Revenge and its origins?
Well, it's a very different kind of story. It was basically the answer to a challenge from my two gamer sons to write a book that would scare the heck out of them and engage them in a way that would be familiar to them coming from playing a lot of video games. So I wrote it as sort of first and third person when needed, and it turned out pretty well. It's a different kind of book, but it is written specifically for gamers.
Mm-hmm. And for the plot line, for those that aren't familiar with it, why don't you tell me a bit about the plot, specifically of the first book in the series, The Ultimate Game?
Well, it's about two brothers who live up in Washington State, and they live in a really dysfunctional kind of family. Their mom's boyfriend is a control freak. Their parents split up, and their dad moved down to Pasadena, so they don't see him much. And their only refuge is playing this game, Echo's Revenge, and they've become pretty much masters of it, and they've got sort of this extended social world, and it's kind of the place they're comfortable in, and it's their refuge. And what happens is Reggie, the older brother, is called out to a focus group by this company, AAA Reality Games, and it's a really kind of strange meeting. There's this game designer, and he talks about this new game, The Ultimate Game, and he won't really tell them what it's all about, other than it's about their greatest fears. And he goes home, and there's sort of a big explosion because he's gone off and done this. So the two brothers decide to run away, basically to go find their father. And they start hitching rides down to California, and it's kind of strange because just when they need a ride, someone shows up. And at the same time, it's kind of weird things are happening. They notice this kind of sparkling effect, and they notice these kind of tracks that appear, when they're camping out or wherever they're traveling. And basically they start to figure out, when they notice these milk cartons with all their gamer friends' faces on them, are being kidnapped. So they kind of figure out that they're next, but they don't know really what's following them. And basically it's this game creature that they've been battling in their video game has been recreated in the real world, and something, they don't know why, but something's happened and this thing has gotten loose. And you find out in the second book what kind of caused everything to happen and what went wrong. But in this story, it's basically them trying to elude this creature and get down to their dad's house before it gets them. And it's a harrowing kind of trip, and of course, they get nailed.
And there's definitely quite a bit of, I would say, horror meets cinematic type aspects to your writing as I've been reading this, and I'm curious, what would you attribute to the influence of your style in this story? Because obviously, I mean, video games pay a lot to it, but it seems like quite a bit really is being paid homage to.
Well, yeah, structurally, I've tried to come up with a sort of different style of writing, But I come out of visual arts. I was a painter, and then I moved into filmmaking and specifically motion simulation experiences, like the Race for Atlantis at Caesars, this kind of big IMAX 3D experiences. So I'm sort of very physical and visually oriented. So I really try to depict scenes that are very tactile and at the same time thoroughly realistic. Because I've had to do a lot of real-world engineering to create effects, I was able to kind of write this in a highly realistic way where everything that's done is completely feasible and has been done, or been the components for these things have been created, and put it together in just a very, very realistic way. So it's kind of a mix of sort of horrific kind of visuals, but grounded in real technology.
Mm-hmm. It definitely very much shows in your writing and how everything is described, especially even the very beginning of the book with the epic video game battle in the beginning. One of my games of choice is Gears of War, and I could definitely see, kind of bits and pieces that were reminiscent of Gears of War and how it was the battles described,
Okay, yeah. And even when we get further in the story, in the website and in the second story, just something like an EMP grenade and, an electromagnetic field generator or anything like that. I've just tried to keep everything completely realistic, and it sort of breaks into techno kind of area in the website where you can find out about all these amazing technologies that exist and who's building this stuff and who's coming up with these ideas. And for example, the whole cloaking mechanism for this creature was based on a concept that I pulled out of a couple of different technologies, and it's described more in the second book when we find out how all this stuff came to be. And then about 6 months ago, I noticed that there was a company in England who had actually designed this stealth technology and put it on tanks and planes and all this stuff. And they had done it in a slightly different way with infrared technology rather than visual spectrum. So I put that up on the site. And so it's just kind of, the website's kind of an auger of all these different technology ideas, and sort of gets into implications of, there's this world around us that maybe we don't know exactly what's going on. Maybe like these guys, things can happen around us, and, maybe we won't know, and maybe we'll find out later, and who's kind of behind all this stuff. So, I really just drew on all of my experience from simulation and visual effects and that whole world as well, and blended it with sort of the horror and the visual components.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've checked out the website echohunt.com, which, as you're mentioning, it has the links to the various technologies, and it kind of creates an augmented reality of sorts with the book itself. It gives the reader something more to explore and experience after they finish the book. So, I'm curious, when did you know that you wanted to have that application added to your book?
Well, after I got going on the book and I was almost done pretty much with the first draft, it kind of dawned on me that since all this is based in reality, and I had done a lot of research and had a lot of source material and that kind of thing, I figured, well, why not put all this up and people could see how this could all come together. And not only that, but sort of have the story come out and then, like 1,000 little branches out of the story into the real world, because I'm just trying to keep things in a highly realistic, not sort of sterilized and cleaned up, but the sort of the dirty realities of the real world. And it seems like a lot of younger readers really were kind of had a thirst for that reality, and that's just basing a story in something that was highly believable. And in a way, it takes on its own excitement, because at times some readers have said, not sure if this is really fiction or not, or where is the fiction and where is the reality, and it all kind of blurs. So it's just a very different kind of experience, I think.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. And so one of the things that I was reading is that you very much want to include, relates to this, STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So
Right.
Is there a reason that you very much wanted to include that in this book series, or is it just a passion of yours?
Well, it's something that I kind of like to involve my sons in, and so I thought, when I was a kid, I didn't really, like fiction so much. I like to read nonfiction, and how things worked and all that kind of stuff. So I thought it would be fun to provide those real, purely sort of like educational but more engaging kinds of links. For example, there's a great code writing site where you bump on and it asks you questions before you don't even know it, but you're writing code. It's setting you up in a really interesting way to do that. So I was just trying to find engaging stuff that, younger readers can just kind of migrate through and find things that they click with or not. And, it's not really central to the whole thing, but it's something that they can kind of stumble into and have a lot of fun with and possibly learn a little something or get excited about some aspect of micro robotics. So it's just sort of keeping in the reality theme of having that there.
And I noticed there's also a number of videos as well on the echohunt.com. They kind of elaborated a bit more on the story. Do you plan on continuing those as the series goes along?
Definitely. I haven't been able to do as many as I wanted, but yeah, there are a couple of really cool revelations that are going to be coming up, and I'm trying to continue the narrative between the books in a looser kind of way, and in yet another kind of language that works, just for the website. That'll continue for the next 5 years. I'm just going to keep going with it, as we will with the. There's a message board where characters interact with readers. People have questions, they can sort of go to the message board and ask about something and get answers from the character or from me or from other people. So it's just a much more dynamic kind of experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And from just reading your first book, I can say it's definitely off to a great start.
Oh, thanks.
You want to let the listeners out there know where they can grab a copy of Echo's Revenge, the Ultimate Game?
Oh, sure. Just go to the website, echohunt.com, and click on the book page, and you'll see a bunch of links to whatever device you have and a bunch of reviews, and you're off and running.
Very cool. And I highly recommend that everybody check it out. And again, Hart, it has been really awesome chatting with you.
Thank you so much.
And do you remember, folks, that when checking out awesome books such as Echo's Revenge, to follow the links in the show notes available at biogamergirl.com, where chaos is the plan. Cheers.
Chaos is the plan. Chaos is the